Hello, we're the last panel. We've made it. It's 5 p.m. on a Friday, and you're all still here, which is very exciting. We're going to try to keep it lively. We're going to have a pretty informal conversation. We know it's the end of the day, and folks have been learning a lot and conversing a lot, and we've all had a long day, but we're excited to be here, honored to be up on this panel. I'm going to ask each of my esteemed colleagues up here to introduce themselves and say a little bit about who they are and who they work for. So why don't we start at the end?
Hi, I'm Jamie Pearson. I'm the COO of Bang Corporation. We are a house of brands. We started with an iconic chocolate bar that's won over 8 High Times Cannabis Cups, 22 awards for our portfolio of products, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Shanita Penny. I am the principal and founder of Budding Solutions. I also lead the Minority Cannabis Business Association. So in addition to consulting, hey, thanks. In addition to consulting, I am a partner in a cultivation and processing operation in Pennsylvania and also a business in Oakland.
Awesome. Thank you.
My name is Kevin Haller. I work with Akeem Consulting. That was a spinoff of our CPA firm. We ultimately opened Akeem to address some needs we saw when working with clients to address compliance and internal control, and just very excited to be up here today.
Great, thank you. Emily, can I have a bottle of water? Thank you. Sorry, I had one and then I lost it, and I know that I'm gonna need it, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Is everyone else good? We all have
Yep,
ours?
I got mine.
Thank you. Great. So I am Lindsay Robinson. I'm the executive director of the California Cannabis Industry Association. We are a trade association based in California. We have almost 500 members representing over 10,000 employees across the state and growing every day, every month. We have been around for just about 6 years, and our primary goal is to lobby on behalf of the industry to essentially help policy reform, create policy reform and regulatory reform that allows your businesses to be treated like any other business in the state. And as any of you know who are operating in California and our members know, this is a very difficult, challenging task. California is complicated and convoluted and overregulated, and we're exhausted and stressed out most of the time. But optimistic, still optimistic. And one of the reasons I was really excited about being on this panel is because we get to talk about positive things, right? Strategic partnerships, I think, for all of our different businesses really enhance what we do. And these partnerships are core many times to how we work and how we are successful. So we're going to dive into it today. We're going to leave some time at the end for questions. We're running a little bit over, but hopefully you all will stick around with us. And if you have questions, we're going to have about 10 or 15 minutes at the end. So again, as Debbie said with the last panel, this is a group of experts, and we're really excited to showcase some of their expertise and knowledge, but also I encourage everyone to try and connect with some of the panelists after, and especially at the party this evening. So exciting. Okay, so one of the things I really wanted to chat with each of you about is to talk a little bit personally about how you got into the industry and sort of what your inspirations are. So feel free to take a few moments, Jamie, and tell us a story.
I got into the industry about 5 years ago, which is interesting because my father was a clandestine grower my whole life, so technically I was in the industry whether I liked it or not, because I had to know when to bring my friends home, when it smelled like skunk in the garage and when I couldn't. And I found that annoying growing up. Was a college athlete, did not smoke marijuana, was anti-marijuana, and then I'm also the cousin of the DJ in Cypress Hill who lit a joint on Saturday Night Live when I was in college, and so had the poster child of marijuana that I grew up with. About 5 years ago, I got sick. I smoked marijuana at the behest of my nephew. It fixed me instantly, and from that day forward, I was no longer anti-marijuana, and Muggs and I were investing in real estate together for about 15 years, and he had me review one of the first contracts that they were asked to look at in coming into the marijuana space. And then I told him I wouldn't sign it, and I told him why. I won't mention who the company was that was trying to get Cypress to be their spokesperson. And one thing led to another, and he asked me to represent the band, and I started off in the industry as the marijuana manager or agent for Cypress Hill. And through that partnership, I found Bang, and one thing led to another, and now I'm the COO. Everything's possible.
Great, thank you for sharing that. Shanita?
I love cannabis. And so throughout my corporate career, actually a little bit earlier than that, throughout my college and then corporate career, I was always just a closet consumer. I grew up in corporate supply chain and transitioned my IT consulting business to serve the cannabis space. So lending my background in project management, international marketing, and operations management to the industry was my goal. I wanted to see this industry look like every other industry that I worked in from a professional and standards point of view. And so I saw the opportunity about 5 years ago when Maryland legalized medical marijuana, and have been on a journey from Maryland to Pennsylvania and now out to Oakland since.
Great, thank you. Kevin?
So on a personal note, I've been involved in the industry for 25 years. Professionally, in the last 4, it kind of started when San Jose consolidated the industry and only allowed for 16 operators. One of those operators happened to be really good friends with the managing partner of our firm, and so we just kind of by dumb luck fell into that, working with that client. And it was wonderful because I had such passion for the industry to get that experience, to learn with them and to kind of tackle it from a professional perspective. In doing so, we saw that there was an incredible need to help these businesses really flourish. They don't really have the infrastructure dialed in at first, and so we really kind of spun off our business, Akeen, to kind of address a lot of the needs that we saw within that industry in terms of navigating compliance, documenting internal controls, policies and procedures, helping them develop all that framework to capture accurate information, to make decisions, to help get financing. So it's just been incredible how this just kind of came about to us and just really helped us build the expertise and really get involved into this industry.
That's great, thank you. I think many of us have a personal connection and personal story about why we work in this industry, right? How many of you have something that touches you personally about cannabis? Right? How many people do you think that work in, say, real estate or the alcohol industry are super inspired by that industry? I think that that's part of the uniqueness of folks who work in the cannabis space, and something that hopefully we're utilizing as a strength in order to inspire our businesses, inspire each other, and build strong partnerships around that. So I would love to hear some of your stories afterwards. I have been working on policy reform in the cannabis space for probably almost 15 years. First as an advocate and cultivator, and then more formally in working on with a number of nonprofits. So I spent almost a decade with the Marijuana Policy Project, which works on national issues, federal issues, but as well as state medical and adult use legalization. Through ballot initiatives and the legislature. So that's my background, and now I get the privilege to work with CCIA. And one of the things that I think is so extraordinary about the opportunities that I've had and that I've worked for is the partnerships that we've been able to create. So first with CCIA, and then also with the Marijuana Policy Project, because really nothing happens in a vacuum. So I'd really love us to, we're gonna dig in a little bit. First I'd like folks to kind of talk a little bit about the current business that you're in, and really kind of dive deep in terms of the business model, and then to think a little bit about what some of those strategic partnerships are, because they can take many different forms. So I want us to really dig in, because I think we each have a unique perspective on that. So Shanita, why don't we start with you this time?
So in my consulting practice, strategic partnerships are critical to achieving our clients' goals. If we're applying for a license, it's necessary for us to form partnerships with the community to gain their acceptance for us even operating in that space. We have to work with the state to, of course, submit an application that is merit-based and competitive enough to win a license. And so it's not something that I can do alone as a one-woman show. And so strategic partnerships are critical for that work. In terms of my entrepreneurial endeavors, strategic partnerships have allowed me to actually own a piece of the businesses that I'm working in. As a consultant, it's one thing to be paid for your services, but then you walk away from, something that's gonna grow up to hopefully be, really big. And so I've been able to go from just consulting for a fee to actually exchanging my talents and skills for equity. And it's something that I couldn't do because I couldn't necessarily write a $500,000 check or, say I'm going to fund this $1 million project, but with the help of good folks that bring, other resources to the table, not only financial, but also their background, perspectives, experiences in other industries. And so I think that's been something that I've leveraged to not only grow my consulting business, but then also the projects that I'm partnering on.
Yeah, that's great. I have a couple thoughts on that I'd like to circle back to in a little bit. But Jamie, what about you?
Well, Bangs made our company based on strategic partnerships. We exploded onto the scene in California in 2010. We've got a 9-year history of award-winning cannabis edibles and CBD products. We were bringing CBD packaged goods into California since 2011. So when our CEO, Scott, really saw the opportunity to expand the brand nationally, there was a barrier to entry in most of the legal states because it would take $1 million to get a license, in, let's say, one state, but you do that times 50, conceivably, you can see that it's impossible to spread your brand if you are in control. So you had to find operators in those states that had the wherewithal to get the license, be good operators, and had an interest in taking the brand into that state. So finding a strategic partnership just to expand the brand was one thing, but where we're at now, that we're so far down that path, is what we say is you had to take what you can get, and now you get to get what you want in our partnerships because the industry's come so far along. Now we're partnered with people like Indiva in Canada, which is a publicly traded company. Our licensee in California is Origin House, formerly Canna Royalty, which is a publicly traded company. Our licensee in Florida is Trulieve. They manage about 75, or I should say have a stranglehold of about 75% of that market. Those are companies that came to us and said, we want to represent and partner with your brand. So we were able to build a brand footprint with our strategic partnerships that have allowed us to grow our brand across the nation. And now we're now being distributed in Germany, Liechtenstein, Austria, Poland, Canada, and we're expanding into some other countries right now. It's really exciting, and we're going to go public in about 3 weeks. We could not have done that had we tried to control everything on our own. Bang's really a testament to strategic partnerships.
So strategic partnerships, to me, I just really honor the business owners and entrepreneurs that really built the industry that we have today. There's people that have been in this space when it was, you couldn't really talk about it, and they're operators, and they've been pushing the envelope. And so I just have tremendous gratitude for those individuals because we're all here because of that. The associations as well. They put money towards lobbying. So again, we're all sitting here today because of the efforts of those that built this industry and those that are supporting and moving this industry forward. On a personal note, I was diagnosed 18 months ago with MS, and it's because of their efforts that I have access to CBD and products which help me deal with my chronic back pain that's happened as a result of my diagnosis. So just tremendous gratitude, and I want to thank the associations and those that have built this industry. And now I look at it like we have an opportunity to kind of pay it forward, and so that's what our business kind of spun off to kind of help businesses thrive. So compliance, as Lindsay had brought up, it's so from so many different angles. There's a lot of red tape in which operators have to navigate. So we kind of help them have documented processes in place in an effort to kind of address the compliance issues that they have, to help them with financial policies and procedures to ensure that they're capturing accurate information so they can make business decisions to grow. So the partnerships are incredible, and there's many partnerships we get through being part of these events. One thing I like to be for my client is, as a consultant, I don't know everything, so I have to leverage the other service providers and professionals that I meet at events like this. So it really takes a village to kind of help our clients really grow their business. And so I kind of love meeting everyone within the different aspects of servicing this industry so that we can kind of, if a client says they have a certain need, I can find a person to kind of help fill that need for them.
Yeah, that's great. I'd love to think a little bit about strategic partnerships in terms of what Shanita was mentioning earlier, either investing or equity shares of a company, and how folks can grow those, those relationships and find strategic partnerships that work for them and their business. Do you have any insight?
Absolutely. I mean, in addition to the business side of things, I think about the work that we're doing with the MCBA to support and strengthen the social equity programs and economic development in every community. And strategic partnerships are really critical for that. We've seen great examples in other industries of companies stepping up and developing small business and entrepreneurs. And it lends itself to innovation, and really growing and strengthening those companies. One of the examples I love to reference is Unilever's acquisition of the Sundial brands. This is an immigrant into the United States who was basically making soap in his kitchen, and he was using his mother's recipe. Unilever, with all of their infrastructure and institutional knowledge and access to money, could not lock down the very lucrative black business, black health and beauty business. And so even when black women couldn't find these products in traditional outlets and big box stores like Target and Walmart, they would purchase online. And so Sundial they were killing it. And so Unilever acquired this company, significant acquisition, but in addition to that, he demanded a strategic partnership that would support development and support entrepreneurs, especially women of color. And so they contributed $50 million to the New Voices Fund. And the New Voices Fund develops other minority entrepreneurs, especially women. And so I think it's important, as I am going out, whether it's consulting and helping other folks build their businesses, or the strategic partnerships that I'm forming, or the work that I'm doing with the MCBA, to look at industry and help share that story as a real example of how the industry can get behind the initiatives that we're fighting for. We put policies in place to ensure access to this industry, to ensure that there's a place for folks that have been impacted by the war on drugs, but we're not putting any money behind them. And if one of the, most significant barriers to entry is access to capital, we have to start there. And the industry itself will be more valuable and more prosperous through strategic partnerships that support sustainable endeavors, diversity and inclusion initiatives, and equity in this space.
Great. Yes, thank you for those points. I would love to talk a little bit more about the associations, so I'd love for you to expand on the MCBA in just a little bit, but I wanted to get Jamie's perspective on working with investors, or partners in a significant way that would make them a strategic partner. Do you have any insight to share on that?
I have a lot of insight to share on that. That's been happening with Bang for the last few years. We've got some of our investors sitting in the audience that we met at this very event in Kauai last year. Through them, they've introduced us to other people that we've connected with, and I do feel like when there's synergies, or when you can complement each other's needs, everybody wins. And I think that's one of the things that Bang looks for in a strategic partnership is if you have a need that we can fill and we have a need that you can fill, you know, that's obviously where a partnership starts from. But then you also have to like each other at a basic level. You have to know that everybody's going to get along and play well in the sandbox. And, you know, I think to Shanita's point, if you're going to make a strategic partnership and if you're out looking for a partner, you have to be looking for ways to actually include the people that don't get or don't have a voice or don't get to play in the sandbox. And one of the things I'm proud of with Bang is we're out there looking for exactly that. So we've made some strategic partnerships that are, you know, like Kim Rivers in True Leave is a woman-owned business. Women represent a larger percentage of ownership and executive positions in cannabis. It's still not representative of you know, the population. We're not there yet. I think of Ruth Bader Ginsburg saying she'll be happy when there's all women on the Supreme Court, and people say, what? She says, well, we don't question when it was all men, right? You know, we're looking for inclusion, and we're getting it in this industry, but Bang's out there looking for it. So out of our entire executive team, everybody's a woman. We have women of color, except for two. We have 2 men on our team. I'm really proud of that. So we're out there looking for ways that we can actively find people that are doing good things, you know, sustainable packaging and just, you know, helping the environment, helping, you know, people that don't have a voice. And I think that's, I'm really proud to be sitting here with you because I love that you said that. Mm-hmm.
Kevin, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so capital's a huge thing in this industry. It takes a lot of money to set up a successful business. And so one thing we like to do is to be a strategic partner for our clients. You know, one thing I like to always say is I want to be the wheel, and I like to leverage other service providers to be spokes. Again, I don't know all the answers, but I want to be able to help my clients to really grow to the next level. To obtain capital, you have to be a strong business, not in just what your product is, but you have to have strong financials. You have to have reliable financials, so you have to have audits. So, you know, those are things that we kind of offer to our clients, as well as helping them with the internal controls and processes to be able to properly navigate and capture accurate information to address compliance, regulatory requirements, you know, even filling out a proper tax return. 280E is a killer in this industry. And so how do we properly navigate that? And so really, I look at strategic partnerships as absolutely crucial in all levels for all of us to help businesses get stronger and grow, to connect the investors with the businesses so they can grow. And so really we like to work together with our clients to kind of help them obtain that capital so they can really move to the next level.
Great. So yeah, I would like to circle back to associations. I know that Shanita talked a little bit about MCBA, and as you all know, I work with the California Cannabis Industry Association, and we're a traditional 501c6, so we're a lobbying group. And I think about strategic partnerships a little bit differently because we have partnerships obviously with our members, right? We represent them and we work with them, and to be honest, that's where all of the expertise and the policy, you know, platform and legislative priorities, that all comes from our members. So I really like to think of our members or clients, you know, as our strategic partners, because there's that give and take of information and sharing, and I know so much more about how their businesses function and the issues that they're facing because of their ability to share that with me, which is great. But I also think about strategic partnerships with the legislature and with the regulators. and the amount of time that we have put into building relationships with those entities, and how sometimes they go sideways, and they're not as strong as we would want them to be, or they don't hear the real concerns of the industry. But then other times we're incredibly proud of those, those relationships, because there's a real give and take there in terms of us sharing the expertise from the industry with them. And so we see great opportunity with that, when we're working with a legislator that comes to us and says, hey, I'd really like to have a bill that regulates cannabis in this way. And we say, hey, have you ever gone to a cultivation site and seen cannabis growing? Do you know how it's harvested? Do you know how it's processed? Do you know what extraction looks like? And when, honestly, 4 or 5 years ago, most of the legislators that wanted to be a part of the conversation and have bills with their names attached to it and be part of regulating, they did not have that experience. So that piece of it, I've been really grateful that we've been able to build those relationships and share the expertise from people who are actually working in the industry to build what I consider to be strategic partnerships. And sometimes, like I said, they go wrong. We have legislators that introduce bills and language that we are absolutely not supportive of, and that they're going to create more regulatory headaches for the industry. Right? The goal is that we would like to be treated like any other industry, right, and not regulated to death. California is dealing with some real growing pains right now in this regard. But I think it's important to think about partnerships in many different ways. So I know we've had some partnerships that have kind of gone, I won't say sideways, but have caused real consternation, and we've had to fight to remedy them. And so I would love for any perspective that you have on a strategic partnership that maybe was fruitful at one point, but has gone a little bit sideways, and then we can talk a little bit more about associations.
Well, I'll tell you, things happen so quickly, and you have to foresee and plan for a number of scenarios. And so for the MCBA, we just really don't have time to expend a lot of energy around things that aren't working. So we're very quick to say, hey, this isn't working, let's go in a different direction. And it's been really rewarding for these strategic partnerships to result in things like our model legislation. And so for the last 3 years, we've brought together, a group of folks, 30 to 40 individuals that represent industry, policymakers, regulators, activists, medical professionals, and we've spent 2 days together saying, what would an ideal adult use bill look like? What does a municipal ordinance look like? What does a municipal ordinance look like that will ensure equity and access and diverse business types and things of that nature? A tax structure that lends itself to real community reinvestment, as opposed to collecting taxes into a general fund and then spending them on big industry development projects, as opposed to education or healthcare or any of the other things that are needed in these communities. And so the strategic partnerships that we have, and just great relationships that we have with folks like DPA, SSDP, MPP, it's been helpful to us in our cause. Our company partnerships have allowed us to do a lot of programming around education, provide resources to folks. Marley Natural and Privateer was a great relationship that allowed us to go and do expungement fairs in Seattle and Portland. We had an opportunity summit last year that was a direct result of a strategic partnership with Hoban Law Group and University of Denver. We are really excited to continue our partnership with state associations like CCIA, and really excited about some upcoming work with new organizations like CTF. And so we're going to continue to work with folks that are interested in pushing forth the general agenda, but that are also concerned with making sure that no one's left behind, ensuring that folks that look like me, that have been caught up in the criminal justice system, just don't have $1 million to bankroll this amazing idea, that they're represented, that they have connectivity to the larger and more prevalent operators that are multi-state, and even international. And so, again, strategic partnerships with our individual members, our company members, and then other associations are how we get our work done.
Yeah. Jamie?
We go into every strategic partnership hoping it's going to go well. I would say we've had some that have gone really, really well, and we've had some that have not gone really, really well. And some of the ones that I look back on and they haven't been successful, they started off with the right intentions. And I think what's important when you enter that partnership, I always say, write your divorce before you get married. Because when you're in the beginning of that process and you're getting ready to join forces, everybody's in the ether of the excitement of the deal. Well, that's when it's really easy to actually sit with them and say, well, okay, let's talk about all the ways this can go wrong and get it on paper and be ready to know what it's going to look like if you have to part ways. Because the reality of being in business in the cannabis industry, it's complicated. It changes all the time. People have different expectations in their heads when they join into partnerships. So as things change and evolve, it's easier now, and we've learned the hard way. You got to be able to cut loose quick if things aren't going well. So it's sort of like be slow to hire and quick to fire. What we're trying to do now is really write our partnerships in a way where they're not as painful to separate from if they don't work. Because the reality is they don't always work. We've been lucky because the ones that we've done, we've learned a lot. We've been doing this for 9 years, and we've been doing it the majority of our efforts have been in partnership situations. Because we have all of that experience in there, we've been really lucky because we've honed the ability to figure out also how to ask good questions of ourselves. Because if I know what I really am looking for, if I know what I really do need, and I know where my pain points are, I can ask the right questions to make sure that we don't just like each other and want to do business together, but we're actually going to be benefiting one another, and there's going to be a result for me and a result for you that we're both expecting. So, I would say in all of those, the ones that don't work are painful, and some more painful than others, and I'm sure you all know what I mean by that, but the ones that have been successful make it worth it. So I would say even though we've had some partnerships go south, strategic partnerships, that win-win, when it does work, it's a beautiful thing.
That's great. Thank you.
So I don't really have many strategic partnerships that have gone bad, but there is, I want to bring up again, working with clients, things will be going really well. They're really liking everything you're bringing to the table, the value you're adding, and then we get to the topic of 280E, and then I look like a bad guy. It's very hard for us as accountants to help clients properly navigate that because they don't like to hear what 280 really is.
Nobody does.
Nobody does.
Nobody.
And it's hard because they all look at me like I wrote the code, and it's just like, no, my job is to make sure you stay in your lanes, okay? I disagree with the rule. I know a lot of my clients use that almost as their strategy for how they make business decisions, and I try to change their perspective, just like, look, let's focus on what it is we're doing and how we can grow our top line and manage costs. But don't have a tax law drive what you're going to do. Not everything is cost of goods sold because you're a cultivator. It just isn't the way it is. So I have to be the bearer of bad news a lot, and that's kind of hard to kind of bring that to the table. But again, I just try to tell them that, look, this is about really building an empire in this space. And what you need to do is follow compliance and the regulations. And that's why I say this is a very expensive industry to kind of get into. And you just got to hold it out until that is lifted. And eventually it will be lifted. I don't know when, but I do know that as long as you can kind of successfully navigate that and just withhold, that's when you're going to be sitting pretty. You don't want to go under over aggressively bypassing any of the rules. And right now the rules are strict, and I would just recommend to everyone, do your best to follow the rules because that's going to keep you open. We all know there's going to be an inevitable consolidation within this industry, and it's those that are really following compliance and doing things as right as they can within the states in which they're operating that will be the the last one standing.
Great. Well, I know we do want to move into some questions, so I'm going to ask each of the panelists to share something that they're really particularly proud of, and it can be based around a strategic partnership or an accomplishment. But I'd love to hear a little bit about something that you're particularly proud of, and I'm going to start with you, Kevin.
So I'm just proud to do my part for this industry to thrive. I'm very passionate about the cannabis industry. I'm excited to see where it goes, and so I just love that I'm doing my part. And it's great when I work with a client and we're doing things and really help them dial in some framework that they're seeing the value. And the other day I just had a comment: we wouldn't be where we're at today without you. And those are the things that just make me feel incredibly proud. And this is just an industry built by incredible people. And I'm just thrilled to be part of it. It's incredible. Who would have thought that today we'd be where we're at? I would have never guessed. And it's really because of associations and entrepreneurs and business owners that have paved the way. So thank you.
Oh, I like that. That's great. Shanita?
Today, I am most proud of a strategic partnership that was born out of a relationship that I formed in the advocacy space. Amber Center of Supernova Women, who's based here in Oakland, and I have spent the last few years bouncing ideas off each other from the East Coast to the West Coast around what social equity and economic empowerment truly looks like. Last year, we came together, and we now have a license for a non-storefront retail delivery business here in Oakland, and we are also incubating a social equity delivery licensee. And so, we didn't have a big budget backing us, but we realized that as we built our business, that we could help another business, another person who needs not just a check, but actual support in navigating this industry. All of the hurdles that are, come in the way of just starting up operations, but also making sure that our voices are continuously heard at the city level to ensure that this program is further developed. It's not enough to just say, hey, we're giving you 1,000 square feet, and so that is incubation of a business. It's not. You need real support, you need access to capital, and you need folks that are committed to developing and seeing these businesses thrive. So today I'd say that's the proudest strategic partnership that I can think of right now.
Jamie?
For me, it's definitely the deep friendships that I've developed over the 5 years that I've been in the industry. Coming from real estate, where it's really a dog-eat-dog situation. We're all fighting for the same houses. We're all fighting for the same deals. I found that the cannabis industry, not to get all kumbaya, but the reality is I come to the ICBC and I run into people that I haven't seen for a while, and it's like running into an old friend. And now I realize they have really become my friends. The people that I'm doing business with, we are so like-minded that's what I'm proud of, is being able to build the relationships that I've been able to build in such a short amount of time that are really, really deep friendships that I know will continue if I jump out of the industry or not. That's what I'm proud of.
That's great. Well, whether we like it or not, we're all part of this movement, right? This greater entity that is slowly but surely changing the world. And I think it's extraordinary that we get to think about business and regulation and partnerships while also always thinking about social justice and really continuing on the legacy of folks who have been fighting for a really long time to finally end prohibition. And we're getting so close. I look back at January 1st in 2018, and I cried really hard that day. And then I was like, oh, wait, California's a mess. But it's still, that is still the motivator, I think, for so many of us. And I hope that we never lose that. I know that we're going to maybe move further away, but I hope we can keep that core and keep that excitement and that trust with our strategic partnerships. Because really, when we're able to leverage those partnerships to elevate our association or our business or our brand, let's hope that we're also elevating the folks that we're working with. That's where I think we have the most growth potential and the ability to change the world. So let's keep that in mind. We are at close to end. If there are questions.
Let's
if
hear it one
anyone-
more time for the panel, though. Lindsay, Shanita, Jamie, Kevin. It's fantastic. I just popped up out of nowhere.
You're good at that.
We have time for a couple of questions for sure. Anyone? Anyone?